7 months pregnant, she stood at the edge of nothing. Her husband had just pushed her into an elevator shaft. 40 feet of pure darkness. 40 feet separating her life from her death. Preston Sterling watched his wife drop into the void. Then he turned around and walked away. He left her bleeding alone in the dark for 6 hours, went home, climbed into their bed, and quietly built his alibi. He was certain she would vanish, just like the 5 women who had come before her. But Genevieve survived, and her father, a former federal prosecutor with 30 years of experience dismantling powerful men, did not reach for a phone. He did not call lawyers. He did something far more devastating. He took apart the entire Sterling empire, piece by piece, secret by secret, until nothing remained except ash and prison cells. This is not simply a story about betrayal. This is a story about a woman who fell into the dark and climbed back out with her daughter held close in her arms. This is her story. The elevator doors opened onto nothing but blackness and a 40-foot drop below. Genevieve Sterling stood at that threshold, one hand resting on her rounded belly, 7 months along, and the baby kicked against her palm as if she already sensed the danger her mother had not yet understood. Behind Genevieve, Preston's breathing was too even, too controlled, the kind of stillness that lives just before violence breaks open. "I found the test results," Vivi said, without turning around. "The prenatal paternity test. You had it done without telling me." The penthouse sat in silence, broken only by the distant murmur of Manhattan traffic 63 floors below. Sterling Tower, his family's monument to 4 generations of wealth and dominance. Tonight it felt like a tomb. "Sweetheart," Preston said. The word oozed condescension. "You're overreacting." "Am I?" She finally turned to face him. Her husband of 3 years, the man she had loved completely, the man who had secretly tested whether the child she was carrying truly belonged to him. "Why would you need a paternity test, Preston, if you trusted me?" His jaw tightened, just barely. Most people would have missed it. But Vivi had spent years learning to read the micro-expressions, the tells, the small fractures in his carefully built mask. "The results came back positive," she continued. "This baby is yours. You already knew that. So why did you need proof?" Preston stepped closer. His Italian leather shoes clicked against the marble. "You've been spending a lot of time with your trainer. People talk." "People?" Vivi laughed, a short, bitter sound. "You mean your mother? Margot has been whispering poison in your ear since the day we met. Don't bring my mother into this. She has been in this from the beginning. She never wanted you to marry me. I wasn't good enough for the Sterling legacy." Vivi's voice wavered. "But I loved you anyway. I gave you everything. And this is what I receive. Secret DNA tests. Accusations." Preston's hands shot out and locked around her wrist. His grip was iron. His eyes were ice. "You need to calm down," he said. "The pregnancy hormones are making you irrational." There it was, the dismissal, the gaslighting, the pattern she had ignored for far too long. "Let go of me." Vivi listened carefully. His voice dropped to just above a whisper. "You are going to forget you ever found that test. You are going to go back to being the perfect Sterling wife. And you are never going to question me again." She wrenched her arm free. "Or what?" Preston smiled. It was the coldest thing she had ever witnessed. "Goodbye, sweetheart." His hand connected with her back, right between her shoulder blades, the exact spot where he had placed his palm on their wedding day, guiding her gently down the aisle. Now that same hand sent her into the void. Time fractured. Vivi felt herself falling. The darkness of the elevator shaft swallowed her whole. Wind screamed past her ears, her arms pinwheeled. Her mouth opened in a scream that seemed to stretch across forever. The baby. Save the baby. Instinct took over. She twisted her body in midair, curling around her belly like a shell protecting its pearl. If she was going to die, she would die shielding her daughter. Impact, but not the bottom. Her body slammed into something metal. A maintenance platform, 12 feet down, not 40. The blow shattered her left arm and cracked 3 ribs. Pain detonated through every nerve ending. But she was alive. The baby was alive. Above her, a face appeared in the elevator doorway. Preston, lit by the glow of his phone screen. He looked down at her crumpled body, watched, waited, then he turned and walked away. The last thing Vivi saw before the darkness claimed her was the ceiling of the elevator shaft, concrete and steel and shadows. And somewhere far above, the soft click of her husband's footsteps retreating across the marble floor. She was going to die here, alone in the dark. No, not alone. Her hand found her belly. The baby kicked. "Fight," Vivi whispered. "We are going to fight." Then everything went black. The hospital room was white, too white, the kind of sterile brightness that belongs inside nightmares. Genevieve's eyes fluttered open. Machines beeped in a steady rhythm. An IV dripped clear fluid into her arm. The smell of antiseptic stung her nostrils. Where am I? What happened? Then it came rushing back. The elevator, the push, the fall. Her hands flew to her belly before her eyes could even focus. The instinct that had saved them both was still there, still holding on. The baby, her voice came out as a ragged whisper. A face swam into view, gray hair, tired eyes, a jaw set like granite. Her father. Dad. Raymond Ashford leaned forward in his chair. He took her hand in both of his. His palms were warm, but his grip was trembling. "Fighting," he said, "like her mother. The doctors say she is a miracle. Both of you are." Tears spilled down Vivi's cheeks, hot and uncontrollable. The relief was enormous. Her daughter was alive, still inside her, still growing, still fighting. "Preston," she managed the name. "He pushed me, Dad. He tried to kill me." Raymond's expression did not change, but something shifted behind his eyes. A darkness Vivi had seen before. The same look he had carried through 30 years as a federal prosecutor. The face he showed to murderers and monsters right before he destroyed them with evidence and truth. "I know," he said quietly. "A maintenance worker found you. Security footage shows Preston leaving the penthouse at 11:52 alone. He told the doorman you were taking a bath and wanted to be left undisturbed." Vivi closed her eyes. The betrayal was total. Not just the push, not just the attempted murder, but the calculated aftermath, the alibi, the plan to make her simply disappear. "How long was I down there?" 6 hours. You almost bled out. The doctors operated twice. Your arm is held together with titanium pins. 3 broken ribs. Internal bleeding. Raymond's voice cracked just slightly. "But the baby is perfect. You protected her with your own body. The doctor said they have never seen anything like it." 6 hours. She had lain in that elevator shaft for 6 hours while her husband went home and slept in their bed. "Dad, what do we do?" Raymond stood. He walked to the window. Outside, the sun was rising over the city. A new day, a new beginning. "Tell me everything again," he said without turning around. "Start from the moment you met Preston Sterling. Do not leave anything out. I need every detail, every conversation, every strange moment you dismissed or explained away." "Why?" Now he turned. His eyes were cold and focused and calculating. "Because I am going to destroy him, Genevieve. Not just arrest him, not just prosecute him. I am going to dismantle everything the Sterling family has built across 4 generations. And when I am finished, the name Preston Sterling will be synonymous with monster." Vivi looked at her father, the man who had taught her right from wrong, the man who had devoted his entire life to justice, the man who had never once used his power for personal vengeance. Until now. "Where do I start?" she asked. Raymond pulled his chair close to her bed. He took out a small notebook, the same kind he had used across 3 decades of federal investigations. "The beginning," he said. "Tell me about the night you met Preston Sterling, and do not spare a single detail. I need to know the man I'm about to bury." The charity gala had been her mother's idea. $200 a plate, crystal chandeliers, women in designer gowns, men in tuxedos that cost more than most people's cars. Vivi had disliked every minute of it. 3 years earlier, she was 29, working as a legal researcher at a nonprofit, daughter of the famous prosecutor Raymond Ashford, but committed to making her own path, her own name. "You look like you would rather be anywhere else," a voice said behind her. She turned. The man was tall, handsome in that practiced way belonging to people who had been admired their entire lives. Dark hair, blue eyes, a smile that seemed engineered to disarm. "Is it that obvious?" Vivi asked. "Only to someone who feels the same." He extended his hand. Preston Sterling. She knew the name. Everyone knew the name. Sterling Corp. Real estate. Finance. A family fortune that had survived 2 world wars and countless economic collapses. Genevieve Ashford, she said, shaking his hand. Raymond Ashford's daughter. Preston nodded. Your father put 3 of my family's business associates in prison. Vivi tensed. If they were guilty, they deserved it. Preston laughed. It sounded genuine. I am not complaining. They were guilty. Your father simply had the courage to prove it when no one else would. He tilted his head. You are the first woman tonight who has looked genuinely bored at one of my family's events. I think I am in love. She should have recognized the warning signs. The charm that felt rehearsed, the compliments that arrived too easily. The way he made her feel like the only person in the room while simultaneously watching everyone else. But she was lonely and tired, and so desperate for someone who saw her as more than Raymond Ashford's daughter. Buy me a drink that does not cost $200, she said. And maybe I will let you tell me more about yourself. Preston smiled. Done. That night, they left the gala together. He took her to a hole-in-the-wall diner in Brooklyn. They ate pancakes at midnight and talked until sunrise. He told her about the pressure of being a Sterling heir, the expectations, the loneliness of growing up surrounded by money but no real connection. She believed every word. He was different back then, Vivi said from her hospital bed. Or I believed he was. Looking back, I can trace the manipulation. But at the time, it felt like fate. Raymond wrote in his notebook. His face revealed nothing. When did things change? Vivi closed her eyes. The memories were painful now, stained by the truth of what Preston really was. After the wedding. Small things at first. He did not like my friends. Said they were jealous of my new lifestyle. He thought I spent too much time with family. Said your work made him uncomfortable. She paused. I made excuses. I told myself he was just protective, that he loved me so much he wanted me all to himself. Classic isolation tactics, Raymond said. Textbook abuser behavior. The word hit Vivi like a slap. Abuser. She had never let herself think it before. Preston had never struck her, never screamed. His cruelty was subtle, surgical, the kind that makes you question your own reality. There is more, she said. About 6 months into the marriage, I overheard a phone call. Preston was talking to someone about a settlement. Something about a girl from his college days. I asked him about it afterward. He said it was a business matter, nothing important. Raymond's pen stopped moving. What was the girl's name? I do not know. He changed the subject. Became angry that I had been listening. I never raised it again. We will find out. Raymond set down his notebook. Genevieve, I need you to understand something. What Preston did to you was not random. It was not a moment of rage. He planned it. The paternity test, the timing, the location. He chose that elevator shaft because he knew about the drop. He knew what would happen when he pushed you. Vivi's stomach turned. You are saying he has done this before. I am saying we need to find out. Raymond stood. I have contacts, people who owe me favors. I am going to start digging into Preston's past. Every relationship, every business deal, every suspicious death or accident connected to anyone he has ever known. Dad, Vivi reached for his hand. Be careful. The Sterlings have power, money, influence. If they find out what you are doing. Raymond squeezed her fingers gently. I spent 30 years putting powerful men in prison, he said. Men with money, men with connections, men who believed they were untouchable. His voice dropped to a whisper. Preston Sterling just tried to murder my daughter and my grandchild. There is no force on this earth that will stop me from making him pay. The door to Vivi's hospital room opened. A woman entered. Silver hair, cold eyes, a Chanel suit that probably cost more than the hospital's monthly electric bill. Margot Sterling. Raymond, Margot's voice was clipped. I heard about the accident. A terrible thing. My son is devastated. Raymond did not move from the window. Is that what he is calling it? An accident? What else would he call it? Margot's gaze moved to Vivi. The poor dear must have tripped. Those elevator platforms can be so dangerous. We have already contacted our legal team about suing the building maintenance company. Vivi felt sick. She watched her mother-in-law reshape reality in real time, bending it to protect her precious son. Get out, Vivi said. Margot's eyebrows rose. Excuse me? I said get out. I know what Preston did. I know what you have been covering up for years. And if you believe for 1 second that I am going to play along with your lies, you do not know me at all. The mask slipped, just for a moment. Vivi saw the real Margot Sterling underneath. The cunning, the cruelty, the absolute certainty that she existed above the law. Genevieve, dear, the pregnancy hormones have clearly impaired your judgment. I suggest you rest before making any accusations you will regret. Raymond stepped between them. Margot, he said softly, we can discuss this like civilized people. The older woman nodded. Of course. That is all I have ever wanted. Raymond's smile did not reach his eyes. I spent 30 years putting civilized people in federal prison. Your son just attempted to murder my daughter and grandchild. He leaned forward. Civilized ended the moment she hit that platform. Margot's face went pale. She looked from Raymond to Vivi and back again. You are making a mistake, she said. The Sterling family has resources you cannot imagine. If you pursue this, you will destroy yourself. I appreciate the warning. Raymond opened the hospital room door. Now get out before I have security escort you. Margot gathered what remained of her dignity. She walked to the door, pausing at the threshold. This is not over, she said. No, Raymond replied. It is just beginning. The door closed behind her. The room was quiet except for the steady beeping of Vivi's heart monitor. Dad, she said, what happens now? Raymond pulled out his phone. He dialed a number from memory. Marcus, it is Raymond Ashford. I need everything on Sterling Corp. Every subsidiary, every offshore account, every skeleton. A pause. And Marcus, I need it yesterday. He hung up. Now, he said to his daughter, we go to war. The laptop screen glowed in the dim hospital room. Bridget Concade sat at Vivi's bedside, her face pale beneath carefully applied makeup. Vivi, she said slowly, I need to show you something, and you are going to want to throw this laptop across the room. 2 days had passed since the fall. Vivi was stable. The baby was thriving despite everything, but sleep refused to come. Every time she closed her eyes, she felt herself falling again. Falling. Falling. Into the dark. What is it? Bridget turned the screen toward her. Search results. Obituaries. News articles from years past. I have been doing some research, Bridget said, on Preston, on his history. And Vivi, you were not his first. The words did not register at first. First what? First wife? First victim. Then Vivi began reading. Chelsea Morrison, age 21, Preston's college girlfriend at Harvard, fell from a fourth-floor balcony during a party in 2004, ruled a suicide despite no history of depression, no note, no warning signs. Diana Reeves, age 26, Preston's first fiancée, died in a single-car accident in 2009, lost control on a mountain road, no witnesses, no other vehicles. The engagement had been called off 2 weeks earlier. Sarah Crawford, age 28, a junior executive at Sterling Corp, found dead in her apartment in 2014. Official cause, accidental overdose. Friends said she had never used drugs in her life. 3 women, 3 deaths, all connected to Preston Sterling. Vivi's hands began to shake. This cannot be real, she whispered. This cannot be happening. There is more. Bridget's voice was barely audible. I found payment records, $200,000 wired to Chelsea Morrison's family 3 months after her death, the same amount to Diana Reeves's parents, the same to Sarah Crawford's sister, all from the same offshore account, all routed through Sterling Corp subsidiaries. Hush money. The Sterlings had paid off the families of dead women. They knew, Vivi said. His parents knew what he was and they covered it up. The room tilted. All those years, all those smiles, all those family dinners where Margot Sterling regarded her with barely concealed contempt. They had known their son was a murderer, and they had allowed Vivi to walk right into his web. I was braver than the others, Vivi murmured. What? At my wedding, Margot whispered something to me. She said I was braver than the others. Vivi laughed bitterly. I thought she meant brave enough to marry into the family spotlight. Brave enough to handle the pressure of being a Sterling. Bridget reached for her hand. Vivi. She meant brave enough to survive. or foolish enough to believe I could. The memory came flooding back. Her wedding day, the white dress, the flowers. Preston waiting at the altar with that perfect smile. She had been so happy, so certain she had found her forever. But the signs had always been there. The way Preston watched other women when he thought she was not looking. Not with desire, with calculation. Like a predator measuring prey. The casual comments about his former girlfriends. How they had been unstable. How they had overreacted. How fortunate he was to have escaped. The moments when he grabbed her wrist just a little too hard during arguments. Always apologizing afterward. Always blaming stress, work, family pressure. She had explained it all away. Made excuses. Told herself that love required compromise. That marriage meant accepting someone's flaws. But these were not flaws. These were patterns. And she had been too blinded to see them. I was not stupid, Vivi said suddenly. Bridget looked up. What? All those times I felt like I was losing my mind for doubting him, for feeling afraid, for noticing the micro expressions that did not match his words. Vivi's voice grew stronger. I was not stupid. I was not irrational. I was deceived by someone who had spent his entire life perfecting deception. Raymond Ashford sat across from Marcus Holloway in a small office downtown. The private investigator was former FBI, 15 years of service before going private. He and Raymond had worked together on a dozen federal cases. How many? Raymond asked. His voice was steady. His hands were not. Marcus slid a folder across the desk. That we know of. 5. Chelsea Morrison in 2004. Diana Reeves in 2009. Sarah Crawford in 2014. There are 2 more. Catherine Wells in 2011 and Rebecca Palmer in 2017. 5 women. 5 deaths spanning 13 years. Your daughter would have been 6, Marcus added quietly. Raymond opened the folder. Photos, police reports, coroner findings. A paper trail of tragedy stretching back 2 decades. The Sterling family has been concealing their son's behavior since he was 19 years old, Marcus said. The first girl, Chelsea Morrison, was 17. Preston was a sophomore. The family claimed it was hazing gone wrong. Paid off the university, paid off the local police, made it disappear entirely. How did they keep it hidden for so long? Money, influence, fear. Marcus shrugged. The Sterling name opens doors. It also closes mouths. Anyone who gets too close to the truth receives a visit from their lawyers. Or worse. Raymond studied the photographs. 5 young women, 5 lives cut short, 5 families destroyed by grief and silenced by money. What about physical evidence? Gone, destroyed, lost, Marcus leaned forward. But there is one thing they could not erase. The payments. Every time Preston Sterling killed a woman, his family wired $200,000 to the victim's relatives. Same amount, same timing, same offshore account. Can you trace it? Already did. Marcus pulled out another document. The account belongs to a shell company in the Caymans. That shell company is owned by another shell company in Delaware. That one is administered by a trust managed by Franklin Pierce, the Sterling family attorney. The same man who has been cleaning up Preston's messes for 20 years. Raymond closed the folder. His mind was already working. Building the case, connecting the points, finding the weakness in the Sterling armor. What do you need from me? He asked. Access, Marcus said. The Sterling family has insulated themselves behind layers of lawyers and money, but there is always someone who saw something, someone who has been waiting for a chance to speak. Find them. I will. Marcus paused. Raymond, there is something else. Preston's pattern. It is accelerating. Chelsea Morrison in 2004, Diana Reeves in 2009. That is 5 years between victims. But Catherine Wells was only 2 years after Diana. And Rebecca Palmer was only 3 years after Sarah Crawford. He leaned back. He is either losing control or growing more confident. Either way, your daughter interrupted something. The pregnancy, the paternity test, something rattled him, made him move faster than usual. Raymond thought about Vivi lying in that hospital bed. The broken bones, the internal bleeding, the baby fighting to exist. He will not get another chance, Raymond said. I am going to make certain of that. That night, Vivi sat alone in her hospital room. The lights were low. The machines hummed their quiet rhythm. Outside, the city glittered with a million lights, entirely unaware of the darkness she had uncovered. She found herself braiding her hair. A childhood habit. Her mother used to do this when she was frightened. Now she did it herself. Over and under. Over and under. The repetitive motion eased her racing thoughts. 5 women, 5 deaths, 5 families shattered, and she had almost been number 6. The baby kicked. Vivi placed her hand on her belly and felt a tiny life inside her, fighting to exist in a world that had tried to end her before she even began. I am going to protect you, Vivi whispered. No matter what it requires, I am going to protect you from him, from his family, from everything. The room held only the sound of beeping monitors, but in that quiet, Vivi made a decision. She would not be a victim. She would not hide. She would not allow Preston Sterling's name to be the ending of her story. It would be the beginning of his destruction. The corner office of Sterling Corp occupied the entire 52nd floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a sweeping view of Manhattan, a monument to 4 generations of wealth, a testament to power. Preston Sterling sat behind his mahogany desk, his left arm in a sling, a prop, a piece of theater crafted to support his story about reaching for his falling wife. Franklin Pierce paced before him. The family attorney was sweating. His expensive suit was rumpled. His usual composure had crumbled into something close to panic. The police are asking questions, Pierce said. Your mother is managing the situation, but Raymond Ashford is not a man who can be managed. My father-in-law is a retired prosecutor. Preston's voice was calm, almost bored. He has no jurisdiction, no authority, no power. He has contacts, 30 years of contacts in federal law enforcement, the FBI, the DOJ, the IRS. Pierce stopped pacing. And he has motive. You pushed his pregnant daughter down an elevator shaft. He lowered his voice. Allegedly, Preston, I have been cleaning up your messes since you were 19 years old. Chelsea Morrison, Diana Reeves, all the others. I have made every problem disappear, but this is different. Genevieve survived. She is talking, and her father has the resources to make people listen. Preston stood and walked to the window. The city spread below him like a kingdom waiting to be ruled. Then we will bury him, Preston said, like we bury everyone. Raymond's home office had become a war room. 3 walls covered with documents, photographs, timelines, a web of connections linking Preston Sterling to 2 decades of violence. Teddy Ashford sat at the computer, his fingers moving across the keyboard. Vivi's younger brother had built his technology company from nothing. He understood money, how it moved, how it hid. Dad, Teddy said, I found something. Raymond crossed the room. What? The payments. $200,000 before each death. I traced them through 17 shell companies. Teddy pointed at the screen. They all lead back to the same account in the Caymans. But here is the thing. The wire transfers occurred 3 days before each victim died. Every single time. 3 days before Chelsea Morrison fell from that balcony. 3 days before Diana Reeves lost control of her car. 3 days before Sarah Crawford overdosed on drugs she never touched. Clean up, Raymond said. He pays someone to handle the aftermath. Make it look accidental. Destroy evidence. Silence witnesses. There is more. Teddy pulled up another document. The same account received a deposit 3 days before Vivi's fall. $200,000. The implications were staggering. Preston had not pushed his wife in a moment of rage. He had planned it, budgeted for it, treated her murder like a line item on a spreadsheet. Can you trace who receives the money? Working on it, Teddy rubbed his eyes. But whoever it is, they are skilled, very skilled. This is not amateur work. This is professional-level money laundering. Keep digging. Raymond picked up his phone. I have a meeting. With who? Franklin Pierce. He wants to make a deal. The meeting took place at a neutral location. A conference room at a midtown law firm. Neutral ground. Witnesses. Everything proper and above board. Franklin Pierce sat on one side of the table. Raymond sat on the other. $20 million, Pierce said. Genevieve signs a non-disclosure agreement. No criminal charges, no civil suits, no public statements. The Sterling family makes this all disappear. Raymond said nothing. It is a generous offer, Pierce continued. More than generous. Your daughter receives financial security for life. Your grandchild grows up comfortable. Everyone moves forward. Franklin. Raymond's voice was quiet. Do you remember the Morrison case? 2008. You represented the family I prosecuted. Pierce's face went pale. That was different. Raymond leaned forward. Because I still have those files. Every document, every deposition, every piece of evidence that mysteriously vanished before trial. He paused. I wonder what the Bar Association would think about how you obtained certain testimony. That case was dismissed on a technicality. A technicality you manufactured. Raymond smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. I have been holding that information for 16 years, waiting for the right moment. Pierce's hands trembled. What do you want? I want the truth. Every victim, every payment, every person the Sterling family has bribed or threatened or silenced. Raymond stood. You have 48 hours to decide which side of history you want to be on. After that, the choice will no longer be yours to make. Vivi's hospital room had become her sanctuary. The monitors had been removed. She could walk now, carefully, with help. The baby was strong and growing and fighting. Her father visited every afternoon. He never shared the details of his investigation. Only that progress was being made. Today, Dr. Nain Weaver came for her daily checkup. The obstetrician was thorough and professional, but there was genuine warmth in her eyes. The baby is remarkable, Dr. Weaver said. Given everything you have been through, I would have anticipated complications. But she is measuring perfectly. Strong heartbeat, healthy movement. She paused. She is a survivor, like her mother. Vivi placed her hand on the monitor screen. The ultrasound image was grainy, but she could make out the outline of her daughter, the curve of her spine, the tiny fingers, the beating heart. Her name is going to be Ruth, Vivi said. After my grandmother. That is beautiful. She taught my father that justice is not revenge, it is restoration. Vivi looked at the screen, at the life she had shielded with her own body. I want my daughter to grow up knowing that the right thing is not always the easy thing, but it is always worth fighting for. Dr. Weaver squeezed her hand. She is lucky to have you as her mother. Vivi smiled. For the first time since the fall, it felt completely genuine. We are lucky to have each other. That night, Raymond received a call, a blocked number, a voice he did not recognize. Mr. Ashford, my name is not important. What is important is what I know. I am listening. Preston Sterling has been killing women for 20 years, and someone has been helping him cover it up. Someone very close to him. Who are you? Someone who is tired of looking away. A pause. Check the maintenance records for Sterling Tower, the elevator where your daughter fell. It was scheduled for repair 3 days before her accident. The work order was canceled by Preston himself. The line went dead. Raymond stared at his phone. Another piece of the puzzle. Another thread to pull. He would pull them all, one by one, until the entire tapestry of Sterling lies unraveled at his feet. Margot Sterling's townhouse occupied an entire block on the Upper East Side. 4 stories of old money elegance, marble floors, antique furniture, paintings that belonged in museums. She stood in her private study, phone pressed to her ear. Her voice was ice. The Ashford situation requires the usual solution, she said. Yes, the daughter. Make it look like complications from the fall. She is still recovering, still vulnerable. It would be simple enough to arrange. A pause. I do not care about the cost. Just handle it. And make sure Raymond Ashford understands what happens to people who threaten this family. She hung up the phone and turned toward the door. Raymond Ashford stood in the doorway. I recorded that entire conversation, Margot. His voice was calm, almost pleasant. You just ordered a hit on my daughter on a federal wire. Margot's face went white. Her composure shattered like fine china. That is impossible. You could not have. Could not have what? Anticipated that you would try to have Genevieve killed? That you would use the same methods you have used for 20 years to clean up your son's messes? Raymond stepped into the room. I have been recording every phone call in and out of this house for 3 weeks. Every text message, every email. Your security system has more vulnerabilities than Swiss cheese. That is illegal. So is conspiracy to commit murder. So is obstruction of justice. So is running a criminal enterprise responsible for the deaths of at least 5 women. Raymond smiled. I spent 30 years learning how to build cases against people like you. People who believe their wealth makes them untouchable. You are not untouchable, Margot. You are simply the next defendant. You are bluffing. I never bluff. I prosecute. Margot reached for her phone. I am calling my lawyers. Please do. While you are at it, you may want to contact a good criminal defense attorney. Franklin Pierce is not going to be able to help you. He is too occupied trying to save himself. The door burst open. Two men in FBI jackets entered, badges displayed. Margot Sterling, the first agent said, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder and witness tampering. You have the right to remain silent. Margot's cries echoed through the townhouse as they led her away in handcuffs. Raymond watched from the window as they placed her in the car. One down, one to go. The media explosion was immediate and total. Headlines everywhere, television, internet, social media. The Sterling name that had commanded respect for 4 generations was now synonymous with scandal. Sterling heir questioned in wife's fall. Former prosecutor uncovers pattern of deaths connected to billionaire family. Sterling matriarch arrested on conspiracy charges. Preston Sterling's face appeared on every screen, his carefully crafted image crumbling in real time. The handsome philanthropist, the charming businessman, the devoted husband, all lies. Vivi watched the news from her hospital bed, a bowl of lime jello in her hand, the same jello she had craved throughout her pregnancy. Preston always mocked the craving, called it childish, common. Now she savored every bite. Bridget sat beside her, scrolling through her phone. Your father is trending. The hashtag Justice for Sterling Victims has been viewed 50 million times. Good. There is also a fundraiser for the families of Preston's other victims. It has already raised $2 million. Vivi set down her spoon. Those families, Chelsea Morrison's parents, Diana Reeves's mother, they had been suffering in silence for years, for decades, accepting money to stay quiet, living with the knowledge that their daughters had been murdered and no one would believe them. Your father believed them. My father did not even know they existed until last week. Vivi shook her head. I should have seen it. All those warning signs I ignored. All those strange remarks Preston made about his former girlfriends. All those moments when I felt afraid and told myself I was overreacting. Bridget took her hand. You survived. That is what matters. I almost did not. Vivi looked at the television. Preston's face filled the screen. So handsome, so confident, so utterly empty behind those blue eyes. He is going to try to reshape this, make himself the victim. Blame me, blame my father, blame anyone but himself. Let him try, Bridget squeezed her fingers. The truth is out now, and your father is just getting started. 24 hours later, the FBI raided Sterling Corp headquarters. Agents swept through the 52nd floor, seized computers, confiscated files. Interviewed employees who had spent years pretending not to notice their CEO's darker nature. The forensic accountants found everything. 20 years of payments to victim families, bribes to local police departments, donations to politicians who blocked investigations. A systematic enterprise designed to enable a killer. Raymond watched the raid from across the street. Marcus Holloway stood beside him. We have enough to charge Preston with racketeering, Marcus said. Money laundering, obstruction of justice, wire fraud. Even without the murder charges, he is looking at 30 years minimum. The murder charges will come. The evidence is circumstantial. No witnesses, no physical proof. Defense attorneys will tear it apart. Raymond turned to face him. There is a witness, my daughter. She felt his hand on her back. She heard him say goodbye. She saw his face watching her fall. Her word against his. Not anymore. Raymond pulled out his phone and showed Marcus the screen. The maintenance platform where Genevieve landed had a security camera. It was damaged in the fall, but recoverable. IT specialists retrieved the footage this morning. Marcus stared at the image. The elevator shaft, the falling body, and above it, clearly visible, Preston Sterling watching his wife plummet toward what he believed was her death. That is enough, Marcus whispered. That is everything. Raymond pocketed the phone. Preston Sterling is going to prison for the rest of his life, and I am going to make certain he knows exactly who put him there. The interrogation room at the federal building was deliberately uninviting. Gray walls, harsh lighting, a metal table bolted to the floor. Celeste Vaughn sat across from Detective Holloway. Her mascara was smeared from crying. Her hands trembled around a paper cup of cold coffee. He told me she was abusive, Celeste said, that she had trapped him with a pregnancy, that she was mentally unstable. I believed him. Her voice broke. I believed everything. Holloway remained quiet. Let her speak. I met Preston at a company retreat 2 years ago. He was so charming, so attentive. He made me feel special, important. She laughed bitterly. Looking back, I can see the manipulation, the love bombing, the way he gradually cut me off from my friends, my family. But at the time, it felt like love. When did you start suspecting something was wrong? About 6 months ago, Preston started acting strange, paranoid. He kept checking Genevieve's phone, tracking her location. He claimed he suspected she was having an affair. Celeste shook her head. I believe he was searching for a reason. An excuse to. An excuse to what? She took a slow breath. Do what he did to the others. Holloway's expression remained neutral, but his grip on his pen tightened. What do you know about the others? Celeste reached into her purse, pulled out a USB drive, slid it across the table. He kept records, she said, of all of them. Photos, videos, personal information. He called it his insurance. Her eyes filled with fresh tears. I found it on his computer last week. After what happened to Genevieve, I understood that I had been sleeping with a monster. Holloway picked up the USB drive carefully. Why are you coming forward now? Because I could have been next. Celeste met his gaze. I recognized the pattern, the way he talked about his former girlfriends, the way he would go cold sometimes. Empty. Like there was nothing human living behind his eyes. She shuddered. I was in love with a serial killer, and I never knew it. The safe house was located in an unremarkable suburb of New Jersey. A modest split level on a quiet street, armed guards at every entrance. Vivi had been moved here 3 days ago, away from the hospital, away from the media, away from anyone who might attempt to finish what Preston had started. It was past midnight. She could not sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the elevator shaft, felt the hand on her back, heard his voice. Goodbye, sweetheart. She walked to the window. Her hand rested on her belly. The baby kicked, strong and insistent and demanding. I know, Vivi whispered. I cannot sleep either. The breakdown came without warning. Not loud, not dramatic. Just a quiet collapse. A crumbling of the wall she had built to contain the horror. She sank to the floor, her back against the wall, her arms wrapped around her belly. The tears fell silently. Hot. Endless. I let him into my body, my home, my family. I loved him. I trusted him. I was going to raise a child with him. And he tried to kill us both. The sob moved through her entire frame. Her broken ribs protested. But she could not stop, could not hold it back any longer. All those years, all those lies, all those moments when she had doubted herself, when she had accepted his explanations, when she had made excuses for his cruelty because it was easier than confronting the truth. She had been married to a murderer, had shared a bed with a monster, had planned a future with a man who had killed 5 women before her. How did I not see it? How did I not know? The door opened, footsteps, then a presence beside her. Bridget, her closest friend, the one person who had never trusted Preston, who had tried to warn her, who had been pushed aside when Vivi chose her husband over everyone else. Bridget did not speak. She simply sat down on the floor beside her, shoulder to shoulder. Silent support. After a long while, Bridget said, You know what I keep thinking about? That time Preston complained the coffee was too hot at your wedding brunch, and you actually apologized for coffee you did not even make. Vivi laughed through her tears, a broken sound. I apologize for everything. The weather, traffic, his moods. I was always apologizing. Never again. Vivi wiped her eyes. Her hand found Bridget's. I survived him. I survived the fall. I am going to survive the truth of who I married. Bridget squeezed her fingers. Yes, you are. The USB drive changed everything. The contents were extensive. 2 decades of documentation, photos of women Preston had been involved with, personal details, financial records. And most damning of all, videos. Videos of Chelsea Morrison at the party before her death, Diana Reeves getting into her car, Sarah Crawford at her apartment building. Preston had not just killed these women, he had documented them, collected them, kept them as trophies. The FBI forensic team worked around the clock, matching faces to names, connecting dots that had been invisible for 20 years. The USB drive contained more than evidence, Raymond told Vivi during his daily visit. It contained the names of every person the Sterling family paid to look away. 3 judges, 2 senators, the police chief who handled Chelsea Morrison's case, half a dozen corporate executives who helped launder the payment money. Vivi stared at him. How deep does this go? Deep enough to bring down some very powerful people. Raymond sat beside her. The FBI is opening investigations into 23 separate individuals. This is no longer only about Preston. It is about the entire system that enabled him. What about the other families? Chelsea Morrison's parents, Diana Reeves's mother. I have spoken with them. Some are prepared to cooperate, others are frightened. They have spent years being told to stay quiet, to accept the money, to move on. Raymond paused. But now they have a choice. Now they can finally speak the truth. Vivi thought about those families. The mothers who had lost daughters, the fathers who had buried children, the siblings who had grown up with a missing piece. They deserve justice, she said. They will get it. Raymond's voice was quiet and still. I promise you that. The grand jury convened on a Tuesday morning, federal courthouse, downtown Manhattan. Security tighter than anyone could remember. Genevieve Sterling walked through the metal detectors with her father at her side. 8 months pregnant now, moving slowly, carefully, every step a reminder of what she had survived. The courtroom was full. Reporters, attorneys, FBI agents, representatives from victim families who had waited decades for this moment. Vivi took her seat in the witness chair. The court reporter's fingers hovered over her machine. 24 jurors watched from their seats, waiting. Please state your name for the record. Genevieve Ruth Ashford Sterling. Mrs. Sterling, can you describe the events of October 15th of this year? Vivi took a breath. She had rehearsed this, prepared for every question, but nothing truly prepares you for reliving the worst night of your life in front of strangers. My husband Preston and I were in the penthouse apartment of Sterling Tower. We had been arguing about a prenatal paternity test I discovered in his office. He had secretly tested the baby's DNA without my knowledge or consent. What happened next? I confronted him, asked him why he needed proof that the child was his. He became defensive, aggressive. Vivi paused. Then he pushed me. Where did he push you? Into the elevator shaft. The doors were open. There was nothing below me but a 40-foot drop. A murmur moved through the courtroom. The jurors' faces shifted from neutral to horrified. What happened after he pushed you? I fell, but I landed on a maintenance platform about 12 feet down rather than the bottom. I broke my arm, cracked 3 ribs, suffered internal bleeding. Vivi's hand moved to her belly. But my baby survived. We both did. Did you see your husband's face during or after the fall? Yes. Vivi's voice was steady now. Strong. He looked at me while I fell. He watched to confirm I was dead. And when I did not die immediately, he turned and walked away. He left me there in the dark, bleeding, alone. One of the jurors, an older woman, had tears running down her face. Another, a middle-aged man, gripped his armrest until his knuckles went white. Mrs. Sterling, were you aware of any prior incidents involving your husband and other women? Not at the time. I have since learned that Preston has a history of violence against women. At least 5 others died under suspicious circumstances while involved with him. Chelsea Morrison, Diana Reeves, Catherine Wells, Sarah Crawford, Rebecca Palmer. Vivi looked directly at the jurors. I would have been number 6. Preston Sterling held his own press conference that same afternoon. Standing on the courthouse steps, flanked by his new legal team, cameras flashing, microphones thrust toward his face. My wife is unwell, Preston said. His voice was smooth, practiced, the same charm that had fooled Vivi for years. The pregnancy has been difficult. The hormonal changes have affected her judgment, her memory. He paused for effect, blinked away what might have been tears. I love her. I would never harm her or our child. These accusations are without basis. I am confident the truth will come out. A reporter called from the crowd. What about Chelsea Morrison? Preston's smile held steady. I do not know anyone by that name. What about Diana Reeves? A tragic accident. I was devastated by her loss. What about Sarah Crawford? Oh, the smile wavered, just for a moment, just long enough for the cameras to capture. I have no further comment, Preston said. He turned to leave, but another reporter's voice cut through the noise. Mr. Sterling, the FBI has released footage from the elevator shaft security camera. It clearly shows you pushing your wife. Do you have a response? Preston froze. His mask slipped completely. For one moment, the cameras captured the real Preston Sterling. The empty eyes, the cold calculation, the utter absence of human feeling. Then he was gone, swept away by his lawyers, retreating into the shadows where he had always lived. But the image remained, broadcast around the world, shared millions of times. The monster had finally been seen. Raymond's final meeting with the federal prosecutors took place that evening. 3 hours of documents, evidence, testimony. We have bank records, Raymond said. Wire transfers, the systematic payments before each death, the bribes to officials who looked away. What about physical evidence? The USB drive Celeste Vaughn provided contains videos of at least 3 victims taken within days of their deaths. Forensic analysis confirms the timestamps. Preston Sterling documented his own crimes. The lead prosecutor, a woman named Victoria Walsh, studied the evidence. 20 years in the DOJ, she had faced monsters before. But this was different. The racketeering charges alone will put him away for decades, she said. Add the obstruction, the money laundering, the bribery. It is not enough, Raymond leaned forward. This man murdered 5 women and attempted to murder my daughter and grandchild. He needs to spend the remainder of his life in a cell, not decades. Forever. Walsh nodded slowly. The footage from the elevator shaft is compelling, combined with your daughter's testimony and the pattern evidence. She paused. We can charge him with attempted murder, first degree, premeditated. And the other victims? That is more difficult. The deaths were ruled accidents or suicides at the time. Reopening those cases will require time and resources. Walsh met Raymond's gaze. But we will do it. Every single one. I promise you that. Raymond stood, extended his hand. The federal case is just the beginning, he said. I have one more move, and it will cost the Sterling family more than prison time. It will cost them everything they valued most, their legacy. The shareholder meeting took place at Sterling Corp headquarters, the same building where Preston had tried to murder his wife, the same elevator shaft where Genevieve had fallen. 300 shareholders filled the auditorium. Nervous whispers, uncertain faces. The company's stock had fallen 60% since the scandal broke. Millions of dollars evaporating by the hour. Raymond Ashford walked to the podium. He was not a shareholder, not officially. But over the past 2 months, working through a network of shell companies and proxy voters, he had quietly acquired 15% of Sterling Corp stock, enough to make his voice heard. Ladies and gentlemen, Raymond began, my name is Raymond Ashford. Some of you know me. Most of you know my reputation. Murmurs from the crowd. The Ashford name carried weight in these rooms. 30 years of federal prosecutions, dozens of corrupt executives sent to prison, a legacy of holding the powerful accountable. I am here today to exercise my rights as a shareholder and to move for a vote of no confidence in the Sterling family leadership. Chaos erupted, shouting, protests, the remaining Sterling board members leaping to their feet. Raymond waited, patient, calm. Given the pending federal indictments, he continued when the noise finally faded, the reputational damage and the evidence of systematic criminal behavior, I believe this company requires new management. Management that is not complicit in covering up murder. You cannot do this, a board member shouted. The Sterling family built this company. The Sterling family used this company to finance their son's killing spree. Raymond's voice cut through the room like a blade. For 20 years, corporate funds were diverted to pay off victims' families, to bribe officials, to silence witnesses. Every shareholder in this room has been complicit in that enterprise, knowingly or not. The room went silent. I am offering you a choice, Raymond said. Vote with me. Remove the Sterling family from leadership. Begin the process of transforming this company into something other than a monument to murder. He paused. Or do not. And watch your investment become worthless when the full scope of criminal liability becomes public. The vote was called. The ballots were cast. When the counting was finished, Raymond had won by a margin of 63%. The Sterling family was out. Their name would remain on the building, but their power was gone, their legacy destroyed. Everything built across 4 generations brought down by one man's pursuit of justice. Preston Sterling's arrest came the following morning. FBI agents waited outside his attorney's office. No warning, no negotiation, just handcuffs and a perp walk in front of 50 cameras. Preston's face showed nothing as they led him to the car. No fear, no anger, no remorse. Just the emptiness that had always been there, concealed behind the charm, behind the smile, behind the carefully constructed mask of humanity. Margot Sterling watched from her townhouse window, her assets frozen, her phone confiscated, her world collapsing around her. The Sterling name that had commanded respect for 4 generations was now synonymous with monster. The civil suits came next. The family of Chelsea Morrison, parents who had spent 16 years being told their daughter had taken her own life, who had accepted money to stay silent, who had lived with the knowledge that justice would never arrive. The family of Diana Reeves, a mother who had buried her child without understanding why, who had questioned the police findings, who had been threatened into silence by Sterling lawyers. The family of Sarah Crawford, a sister who had always known her sibling did not use drugs, who had fought for years to reopen the investigation, who had finally been heard. 20 years of silence broken, 20 years of grief finally acknowledged. The Sterling fortune that had built hospitals and endowed universities would now pay restitution to the families it had destroyed. Vivi received the news at the safe house, her father called. His voice was tired but triumphant. "It is done," Raymond said. "Preston will be arraigned tomorrow. The charges are attempted murder, racketeering, money laundering, obstruction of justice. The prosecutors are confident. The evidence is overwhelming." Vivi sat down slowly, her hand on her belly. The baby was still now, resting. "What about his mother?" "Margot's trial is scheduled for next month. Conspiracy. Ordering a hit on you, 20 years of obstruction." Raymond paused. "She will die in prison, Genevieve." "They both will." The tears came. But these were different. Not tears of pain, not tears of fear, tears of release, of something finally settling, of a long nightmare drawing to a close. "Thank you, Dad." "Do not thank me," Raymond's voice softened. "You survived. You testified. You found the courage to tell the truth when staying silent would have been so much easier." A pause. "I am proud of you. So proud." Vivi wiped her eyes. "I could not have done it without you." "Yes, you could have. You were always stronger than you realized." Raymond cleared his throat. "Now get some rest. You have a baby to deliver and a whole new life waiting to begin." The contractions started at 3:17 inches the morning. Vivi had been dreaming. Not the nightmares that had haunted her for months. Not the falling. Not the darkness. Not Preston's face watching her drop into the void. Something different. Something peaceful. A garden. Sunlight filtering through apple trees. A small girl with dark hair running through wildflowers. Laughing. Free. Safe. Then the pain. Sharp. Urgent. Unmistakable. Like a fist closing inside her belly. Vivi's eyes flew open. The safe house bedroom was dark and still, broken only by the distant hum of the security system. Another contraction. Stronger. Radiating from her lower back through her abdomen like a wave of heat. "It is time," she whispered to the empty room. "Oh, it is time." Her hand found her belly. 8 months and 3 weeks. Early but not dangerously so. The doctors had prepared her for this possibility. The trauma of the fall. The months of stress. The body sometimes decides it has had enough. She reached for her phone. Speed dial 1. Her father. "Dad." Her voice was steady, calmer than she felt. "The baby is coming." Raymond Ashford had faced down murderers, testified before Congress, prosecuted men who had threatened to destroy him and everyone he loved. But the sound of his daughter's voice telling him his grandchild was arriving reduced him to something approaching full panic. "I am on my way. 20 minutes. Do not move. I am calling the hospital. I am calling Teddy. I am calling Bridget. Do not move. Dad. What? Breathe. A pause, then a laugh. Shaky, but real. That is supposed to be my line. I know. I learned from the best. The drive to the hospital took 43 minutes. Raymond broke every speed limit. Teddy sat in the passenger seat, calling ahead. Bridget had somehow arrived before the ambulance that transported Vivi from the safe house. The private maternity wing had been secured days earlier. Armed guards at every entrance. No press, no cameras, no one without explicit clearance. This moment belonged to Vivi and her family. After everything they had been through, they had earned that privacy. The labor room was carefully designed. Soft lighting, gentle music, medical equipment concealed behind warm wood panels. Everything arranged to feel less clinical, more human. Vivi lay in the bed, connected to monitors tracking her contractions and the baby's heartbeat. The steady beeping was oddly reassuring, proof that Ruth was still fighting, still strong. Bridget held her hand through the first serious contractions, the kind that made Vivi grip the bed rails until her knuckles went white. Breathe, Bridget said. In through the nose, out through the mouth, just like we practiced. We never practiced. Then improvise. You are very good at that. Vivi laughed despite the pain. Only Bridget could make her laugh during labor. How bad is it? Bridget asked. You remember when you convinced me to try hot yoga and I passed out in downward dog? That bad? Multiply by 1,000. So we are never doing hot yoga again. We are never doing anything again. I am never leaving this bed. Another contraction. Vivi's grip tightened. The monitors beeped faster. You are doing wonderfully, the nurse said. 7 centimeters. A few more hours. A few more hours. Vivi closed her eyes. She could do this. She had survived Preston Sterling. She had survived the fall. She had endured 6 months of investigations and testimonies, and having every corner of her life examined by strangers. She could survive childbirth. The hours stretched. Time lost all meaning. There was only the pain and the pressure and the relentless movement towards something inevitable. Raymond paced the waiting room, back and forth, wearing a path in the expensive carpet. Teddy tried to distract him, showed him videos on his phone, talked about the company he was building, anything to fill the silence. Dad, sit down. You are making me dizzy. I cannot sit. I have been sitting for 6 months. Sitting in courtrooms, sitting in meetings, sitting across from lawyers and prosecutors and FBI agents. Raymond ran his hands through his gray hair. I need to do something. There is nothing to do. She is in good hands. The doctors are excellent. The security is solid. Everything is in order. Nothing is in order. Raymond stopped pacing and looked at his son. When your mother was in labor with you, I believed I understood fear. I thought I knew what helplessness felt like. But this, he shook his head. After everything Genevieve has survived, everything that man put her through, and now she has to do this. She is not alone. Bridget is with her. That is not what I mean. Raymond sat down heavily. I mean without a partner, without someone who loves her the way she deserves to be loved. She is bringing a child into the world, and the father of that child tried to kill them both. Teddy was quiet for a moment. Then he reached over and placed his hand on his father's shoulder. She has us, he said. She has you. She has me. She has Bridget and the whole family and everyone who has been fighting beside her since this began. He paused. Ruth is not going to grow up without love, Dad. She is going to grow up with more love than she knows what to do with. Raymond looked at his son. This young man who had grown into himself while Raymond was consumed with cases, with work, with putting away the bad guys while his own family, sometimes felt like something he would get back to. When did you become so wise? I had a good teacher. Teddy smiled, even if he was not always there. I am sorry for the times I was not. You are here now, that is what counts. The waiting room door opened. A nurse appeared. Mr. Ashford, there has been a complication. The word moved through Raymond like a current as he followed the nurse down the corridor. Complication. Such a measured word. Such a careful way of saying something has gone wrong. The delivery room was controlled movement. Doctors and nurses working with urgent precision. Monitors signaling with increasing frequency. Vivi's face pale against the white sheets. What is happening? Raymond demanded. Dr. Weaver met him at the door. Her expression was serious but not panicked. Professional concern rather than alarm. The internal scarring from the fall is affecting the birth canal, she explained. The baby is presenting in a difficult position. We need to perform an emergency cesarean section. Is she going to be all right? Is the baby going to be all right? We are going to do everything we can. Dr. Weaver's hand touched his arm. A rare gesture of personal warmth from a typically measured physician. Your daughter is strong, Mr. Ashford. She has fought through worse than this. Raymond looked past her through the doorway. He could see Vivi on the bed. Her face was tight with pain, but her eyes were clear, focused, determined. She caught his gaze and managed a small smile. I have got this, Dad. He nodded, unable to speak, unable to do anything but watch as they wheeled her toward the operating room. The cesarean section took 47 minutes. 47 minutes of silence in the waiting room. Teddy and Raymond sitting side by side, not speaking, not moving, just waiting. Bridget had been allowed to remain with Vivi, holding her hand through the procedure, speaking to her in low, steady tones about nothing and everything, keeping her grounded, keeping her present. The anesthesia took hold quickly. Vivi was awake but numb from the chest down. She could feel pressure but not pain, could sense movement but not the cutting. You are doing beautifully, the anesthesiologist said. Just a few more minutes. Vivi stared at the ceiling. The surgical lights were bright, almost harsh, but she did not close her eyes. She wanted to be present for every moment. This was the birth of her daughter. The beginning of Ruth's story. No matter how it arrived, she wanted to hold it. Almost there, Dr. Weaver said from behind the surgical curtain. I can see her head. She has a lot of hair. Hair. Her daughter had hair. Such a small thing. Such an enormous thing. One more minute, Genevieve. You are going to feel some pressure. The pressure came. Strange. Uncomfortable. But not painful. Like something being lifted from deep inside her. And then a cry. Faint at first, then growing. Stronger. The sound of a life announcing itself to the world. She is here, Dr. Weaver said. She is beautiful. They lifted Ruth above the curtain so Vivi could see. Red and wrinkled and covered in fluid. Tiny fists clenched, mouth open in that timeless newborn announcement. The most beautiful thing Vivi had ever seen. Ruth, she whispered. My Ruth. 6 pounds, 2 ounces, 19 inches long. Perfect Apgar scores, 10 fingers, 10 toes, a full head of dark hair that would dry into soft curls. The nurses cleaned her, wrapped her in a pink blanket, placed her in Vivi's arms. The first moment of contact was electric. Skin against skin, heartbeat against heartbeat. 2 lives that had been one for 8 months, now separate but forever bound. Ruth's eyes were closed, her face scrunched in that newborn bewilderment of too much light, too much sound, too much of everything. But she was not crying anymore. She was listening, feeling, recognizing the heartbeat she had heard from inside. Hello, beautiful, Vivi whispered. I have been waiting for you. The baby made a small sound, not quite a cry, not quite a coo, something between, a response, an acknowledgement. I know, Vivi said. It is bright out here and loud and strange, but I promise you, it is also wonderful. There is so much I want to show you, so much I want you to see. Ruth's eyes fluttered open, unfocused, unable to see clearly yet, but somehow finding her mother's face, somehow knowing. You have my eyes, Vivi said. The tears came then, hot and uncontrollable, but not sad, not afraid, just overwhelmed with a love so vast it felt like drowning. You have my eyes, Ruth. Not his, mine. Such a small thing, such an enormous mercy. Raymond was allowed in 30 minutes later. He stood in the doorway of the recovery room, suddenly uncertain. This man who had faced the worst of what people could do to one another, made speechless by a 6-pound infant. Come meet your granddaughter, Vivi said. He approached slowly, reverently, as if the baby might shatter if he moved too quickly. Vivi transferred Ruth into his arms. The handoff was a little awkward, neither of them quite certain of the mechanics. But then she was there, cradled against his chest, so small, so entirely perfect. Raymond looked down at his granddaughter. Something changed in his face. The prosecutor dissolved, the strategist, the man who had spent 6 months dismantling an empire. In their place was simply a man, a grandfather, holding the future in his arms. "She looks like you did," he said, his voice unsteady. "When you were born, same nose, same chin, same expression, like she is already forming opinions about everyone in the room." Vivi laughed. "She probably is. Smart girl." Raymond could not stop looking at her. "You know, when you were born, I made a promise. I told your mother I would protect you, keep you safe, make sure nothing terrible ever reached you." His voice broke. "I failed. I let you marry that man. I did not see what he was until it was nearly too late." "Dad, let me finish." He looked up, met her eyes. "I failed to protect you, but I will not fail her. I swear to you, Genevieve. I will spend every remaining day making sure this little girl knows she is loved, that she is safe, that she has a family who would burn the world down before allowing anyone to harm her." Vivi reached for his hand. "You did not fail me, Dad. You saved me. You saved both of us. We saved each other." Ruth made a small sound of contentment, as if she were agreeing with the sentiment. Raymond laughed. "A real one. The first in months. She is already contributing to the conversation. Definitely your granddaughter." The visitors came in waves over the following days. Teddy arrived with flowers and a stuffed elephant that was larger than the baby. Bridget brought designer onesies and a promise to be the aunt who let Ruth get away with everything. Dr. Weaver checked in twice daily, marveling at how quickly both mother and daughter were mending. But the most unexpected visitor came on the third day. Vivi was alone in her room, Ruth sleeping in the bassinet beside her, the afternoon light coming through the windows warm and golden. A knock at the door. Celeste Vaughn stood in the hallway, uncertain, out of place, holding a small gift bag like a shield. "I should not be here," she said, the same words she had spoken months ago at the Federal Building. "But I wanted." "Come in." Celeste approached the bassinet slowly. Her eyes found Ruth. The baby was awake now, watching this stranger with the intense concentration that newborns sometimes have. "She is beautiful," Celeste whispered. "Thank you. I brought something." Celeste held out the gift bag. "It is probably not right. I did not know what to get. I have never." She stopped. Began again. "I have never done this before. Visited someone I helped hurt, someone who should despise me." Vivi took the bag. Inside was a small silver rattle, simple, elegant, a dove engraved on the handle. "For peace," Celeste explained. "I know it does not make up for anything. I know I cannot undo what I did, what I was part of." She was crying now, quietly. "But I wanted her to have something from someone who understands what her mother came through, who is trying to be better than what she was." Vivi looked at the rattle, then at Celeste. This woman who had been her replacement, her rival. The other woman in every possible sense, but also a victim. Another person shaped and used by Preston Sterling. Another life nearly ruined by his cruelty. "Sit down," Vivi said. Celeste hesitated, then sat in the chair beside the bed. "I am testifying next month," she said. "The federal prosecutors want everything. Every conversation, every lie he told, every moment I spent pretending not to see what he actually was." "Are you frightened?" "Terrified," Celeste laughed. A short, broken sound. "The Sterling lawyers have already started, leaking stories about my past, my relationships, anything to discredit me before I take the stand. They tried that with me as well." "How did you manage it?" Vivi considered the question. "I focused on what matters," she finally said. "Ruth, my family, the truth." She paused. "Everything else is noise." Celeste nodded slowly. "I envy you that. The clarity, the certainty." She looked at Ruth. "Maybe that is what becoming a mother does. Gives you something larger than yourself to fight for." "Maybe," Vivi shifted in the bed. "Or maybe it is what surviving does. It strips away everything that is not essential until you are left with what truly is." They sat in quiet for a moment. Two women connected by the worst person either had ever known, finding something like understanding in the space between them. "I should go," Celeste said. "You need rest. I have already taken enough of your time." She stood and walked toward the door, paused. "Thank you," she said, "for not hating me, for allowing me to see her." Another pause. "For showing me that it is possible to come through something like this and still be fully human." Vivi watched her go, then looked at Ruth. The baby was watching too, those unfocused newborn eyes somehow seeing everything. That was complicated, Vivi told her daughter. Life is going to be full of complicated things. People who hurt you, people who help you. Sometimes the same person doing both. Ruth blinked. The challenge, Vivi continued, is learning which is which, and finding the courage to forgive when forgiveness is genuinely deserved. The baby yawned. Apparently, philosophical discussions were exhausting. Fair point, Vivi said. We will save the rest for when you are older. The verdict came down on a Tuesday, 6 months after Ruth's arrival. 6 months of motions and hearings and legal maneuvering. 6 months of the Sterling defense team deploying everything they had against the prosecution's case. None of it worked. The evidence was too solid. The elevator footage, the financial records, the testimonies of Celeste Vaughn, and dozens of others who had finally found the courage to speak. Preston Sterling III, guilty on all counts. Attempted murder in the first degree, premeditated. Conspiracy to commit murder. Racketeering, money laundering, obstruction of justice, bribery of public officials. Sentence: life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Margot Sterling's trial had concluded a month earlier. The matriarch of the Sterling dynasty, the woman who had protected her son's crimes for 2 decades, who had ordered a hit on her own daughter-in-law. Guilty of conspiracy to commit murder. Guilty of obstruction of justice. Guilty of witness tampering. 25 years in federal prison. She would die behind bars. Vivi watched the verdict from her living room, Ruth in her arms. The television on mute. She did not need to hear the words. She could see them on the faces of the reporters, the prosecutors, the families of victims who had waited decades for this moment. Justice, not perfect justice. Nothing could return Chelsea Morrison or Diana Reeves or Catherine Wells or Sarah Crawford or Rebecca Palmer. Nothing could erase the years of silence, the years of fear, the years of wondering if anyone would ever believe them. But this was something, an acknowledgement, a reckoning, a line in the ground that said no more. Raymond called moments after the verdict. "It is done," he said. "It is finally done." Vivi looked at her daughter, 6 months old, growing so quickly, already reaching for everything within range. "No," she said, "it is just beginning." The courthouse steps were crowded with cameras and reporters and onlookers. The verdict had drawn attention from around the world. The fall of a dynasty. The victory of truth over wealth and power. Vivi walked through the noise with Ruth in her arms. Security flanked her on both sides, but she did not hurry, did not hide. She let them look, let them photograph. Let them see what survival looked like. A reporter called out, "Mrs. Sterling, how do you feel about the verdict?" She stopped, turned toward the cameras. Ruth was awake, observing the crowd with wide-open eyes, absorbing this strange new world of flashing lights and shouting voices. Vivi smiled, not triumphant, not vindictive, something quieter, something steadier. "Peace. My name," she said clearly, "is Genevieve Ashford, and I feel like the rest of my life just began." Then she walked down the steps into the waiting car, away from the past, and into everything that came next. 2 years later, the house sat on 3 acres of Connecticut countryside. A white Cape Cod with blue shutters, a wraparound porch with rocking chairs, a garden that bloomed with color from April to October. Nothing like Sterling Tower. Nothing like the penthouse where Vivi had spent 3 years of her life performing happiness. This was real. This was hers. This was home. Ruth's laughter echoed across the backyard. 2 years old, running on strong legs that had learned to walk at 10 months and had not stopped moving since. She was chasing butterflies, her dark curls bouncing, her arms reaching toward creatures that always stayed just beyond her grasp. Vivi watched from the kitchen window, coffee in hand, morning light streaming through clean glass. Every day began like this. The quiet moment before everything started, when she could simply watch her daughter exist in the world, safe, happy, free. The nightmares had stopped about a year ago, the falling, the darkness. Preston's face hovering above her in the elevator shaft. Therapy had helped, time had helped, but mostly Ruth had helped. It is difficult to live in the past when the present demands so much of your attention. The doorbell rang. Vivi crossed to the front door, already knowing who it was. Her father had a key but always rang anyway, old-fashioned courtesy. Raymond Ashford stood on the porch, a stuffed giraffe under one arm, a bakery box in his hands. Grandpa. Ruth had somehow heard the bell from the backyard, come racing around the side of the house, and launched herself at Raymond's legs with the full force of toddler enthusiasm. He laughed, set down the bakery box, and lifted her with an ease that defied his 63 years. There is my favorite girl. I am chasing butterflies. Did you catch any? No, they are too fast. That is all right. The best things in life are worth chasing, even when you never quite catch them. Ruth considered this wisdom with the gravity only a 2-year-old can summon, then squirmed to be released. Come, see my garden. She grabbed his hand and pulled him toward the backyard. Raymond shot Vivi a helpless look over his shoulder. Coffee is on the counter, she called after him. I will bring it out. The garden had been Ruth's project, or at least she believed it was. She had helped press seeds into the soil in spring, watched them grow across summer, taken personal credit for every flower that bloomed. Raymond let her lead the full tour, nodding with genuine seriousness at each discovery, asking careful questions about colors and names, and which flowers were her absolute favorites. Vivi brought coffee and joined them on the patio. The morning was warm but not too warm. A perfect September day. You know, Raymond said, settling into one of the rocking chairs, when you were small you had a garden too. Nothing like this one, but you were proud of it. I do not remember. You were 3, we had just moved to the house in Westchester. Your mother planted tomatoes and you decided they belonged to you. Watered them every single day. Talked to them. He smiled at the memory. When they finally produced, you were so proud, made us include them in every meal for a month. Vivi reached for the memory. It was there somewhere, buried beneath decades of other moments. I miss her, she said. Mom, I wish she could have met Ruth. Raymond watched his granddaughter press her hands into the soil with complete concentration. She would have loved all of this. What you have built, who you have become, who we have both become. Vivi laughed softly. Some days I am not entirely sure who that is. You are a survivor, a mother, a voice for people who did not have one. Raymond turned to look at her. Do you know how many families you have helped? Not just the sterling victims. Others, people who watched your testimony and recognized their own lives in it, who found the strength to leave, to speak, to fight. Vivi had received those letters. The messages arriving at her attorney's office, the notes left through the foundation's website, women who had seen her testimony and seen themselves, who had found in her story permission to begin their own. I just told the truth. The truth is the most powerful instrument there is. I spent 30 years proving it. Raymond sipped his coffee. Speaking of which, I received a call yesterday from the Department of Justice. They are reopening the cold cases, all 5. Chelsea Morrison, Diana Reeves, Catherine Wells, Sarah Crawford, Rebecca Palmer. He paused. The forensic technology has improved considerably. Combined with the financial records, they believe they can upgrade the charges. Murder in the first degree, all of them. Vivi sat with that. More trials, more testimony, more returning to the nightmare she had left behind, but also more justice. More acknowledgement for families who had been waiting far longer than she had. What do you need from me? Nothing yet, but they may want you to testify again about the pattern, about what you observed during your marriage. Raymond reached for her hand. You do not have to. You have already done more than anyone could ask. I will do it, the words came without hesitation. Those families deserve the same thing I received, a verdict. An acknowledgement that what happened to their daughters was not accidental, was not self-inflicted, was nothing other than what it was. Vivi nodded. And if my testimony helps establish that, then I will testify as many times as they need. Raymond squeezed her hand. Your mother would be so proud. The Survivors Advocacy Foundation had been Vivi's idea, a way to take everything she had lived through and channel it into something that served a purpose. The Ashford Foundation for Domestic Violence Survivors, funded initially through a portion of her divorce settlement, grown steadily through donations from people touched by her story. The offices were in downtown Hartford, nothing elaborate, a converted warehouse with exposed brick and generous windows, desks for the staff, meeting rooms for support groups, a crisis hotline that operated around the clock. Vivi visited once weekly, more when she could arrange it. Today she brought Ruth with her. "This is where Mommy works," she said as they came through the front door. Ruth looked around with enormous eyes. The office hummed with movement, phones ringing, people typing, conversations layered over one another in every direction. "It is loud," Ruth observed. "Yes, because many people need help, and these are the people who help them." A woman approached. Sarah Chen, the foundation's executive director. Brilliant, compassionate. A survivor herself, though her story was entirely her own to share. Genevieve. "And this must be Ruth." Sarah crouched to Ruth's level. "I have heard so much about you. Your mommy says you are the best helper in the whole world." Ruth considered this. "I help with the garden. That is extremely important work. Flowers need water." "They certainly do." Sarah stood. "We have new volunteers beginning today. Would you like to say a few words?" "Nothing formal. Just a welcome. Let them feel what they are part of." Vivi agreed. She had done this before, discovered she was good at it, though public speaking had never come easily to her. But talking about this, about survival, about what hope actually looked like, that came from somewhere beneath skill. The conference room held about 20 people, new volunteers, some eager, some uncertain, all committed to making a difference. Vivi stood at the front. Ruth sat in a chair beside her, coloring in a book someone had thoughtfully provided. "Thank you for being here," Vivi began. "I understand you each have other things you could be doing. Jobs, families, lives that do not require spending your free time walking alongside strangers through the worst moments of theirs." She paused. "But you chose this. You chose to be here. And that choice matters more than you can currently understand." A young woman in the front row was crying quietly. Vivi recognized what it meant. A survivor, recent probably, finding her way back to steady ground. "When I was thrown down that elevator shaft, I believed my story was ending. I believed everything I had worked for, hoped for, was gone. In a single moment, the man I loved attempted to erase me from the world entirely." The room was silent. Even Ruth had stopped coloring. "But I survived, not because I was exceptionally strong, not because I was special. I survived because I was not alone. Because there were people who believed me when I told the truth. People who fought for me when I was too broken to fight for myself." She looked at each face before her. "That is what you are doing here. You are becoming that person for someone else, the one who listens, the one who believes, the one who says, 'I see you. I believe you. You are not alone.'" The young woman in the front row raised her hand. "How do you know what to say when someone shares their story with you?" Vivi considered the question carefully. "You do not need to know exactly what to say. You only need to listen, really listen. Not in order to respond, not in order to fix. Simply to witness." She paused. "Most survivors have spent so long being told that their experiences were not real, that they were exaggerating, that they were wrong. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can offer is simply these words. 'I believe you.'" The session continued. Questions and practical information about resources and how things worked. But Vivi returned again and again to that center. "I believe you." 3 words that had helped save her life. The afternoon brought an unexpected visitor. Vivi was in her office reviewing grant applications when Sarah knocked. "There is someone asking to see you," says her name is Margaret Morrison. Morrison, Vivi's chest tightened. Chelsea Morrison's mother. Sarah nodded. "Should I tell her you are occupied?" Vivi took a breath. "No, send her in." Margaret Morrison was in her 60s. Silver hair, eyes that had carried too much grief for too long. She entered slowly, as if unsure she had the right to be there. "Mrs. Ashford, thank you for seeing me. Please call me Genevieve, and sit down." Margaret settled into the chair across from Vivi's desk. Her hands were clasped in her lap. "I was not certain I should come. We have never met. And what I have to say, it has been 16 years. 16 years of silence, of accepting their money and allowing the world to believe my daughter ended her own life." Vivi waited. "Let the woman speak in her own time." "Chelsea did not kill herself." Margaret's voice broke. "She was happy. She was planning her future. She had just declared her major. She was talking about law school. About making a difference. She paused. I know. I have read her file. Then you know what he did. What they all helped cover up. Margaret wiped her eyes. I have always known, but I was frightened. They threatened us. Said they would destroy my husband's business. Take our home. Make our lives impossible. The Sterlings were skilled at threats and equally skilled at following through. She laughed bitterly. So we accepted the money, signed their papers, stayed silent while our daughter's killer moved freely, dated other women, married you. She looked at Vivi with something like wonder. And you survived? You were the one who finally stopped him. Vivi shook her head. I was not the only one. There were investigators, prosecutors, other survivors who came forward. But you were first. You were the one who found the courage to tell the truth when everyone else was still afraid. Margaret reached into her purse, pulled out a photograph, placed it on the desk between them. Chelsea Morrison at 18, dark hair, bright smile, so young, so full of promise. She would have been your age now, Margaret said, 32, perhaps married, maybe with children of her own. A pause. I wonder sometimes who she would have become. Vivi looked at the photograph. This girl she had never known. This woman she was connected to through tragedy and survival. I am so sorry, she said, for everything you have lost, for everything you carried. I did not come for sympathy, Margaret straightened in her chair. I came to say something, something I have never spoken to anyone. What is it? Thank you. The words were quiet and enormous. Thank you for surviving. Thank you for speaking. Thank you for being brave enough to do what my family could not. Tears moved down her face. Because of you, the world knows what happened to my daughter. Because of you, her death was not invisible. Vivi came around the desk. She knelt beside Margaret's chair and took the older woman's hands in her own. It was never invisible. Chelsea's life mattered. Her death mattered. Even when no one acknowledged it publicly, you knew the truth. You carried it for 16 years. That is not weakness. That is an extraordinary kind of strength. They remained like that for a long moment. Two women bound by the same man's cruelty, finding something like peace in the quiet between them. Evening came slowly across the Connecticut countryside, the sky filled with orange and pink and deep gold. Ruth had worn herself out at the foundation and fallen asleep in the car on the way home. She was now tucked in bed, holding the stuffed elephant Teddy had given her at birth. Vivi stood on the back porch, a glass of wine in her hand, the first she had allowed herself since the pregnancy. The garden was lovely in the fading light. The flowers folded for the night. The butterflies Ruth loved so much settled somewhere beyond sight. She thought about the day. The new volunteers with their open faces, Margaret Morrison with her 16 years of grief, the photograph of Chelsea that Vivi had asked to keep. So much pain, so much endurance in the face of impossible things. And yet life continued. Flowers bloomed. Children laughed. Survivors found their words. Families found their answers. The darkness Preston Sterling had created was being pushed back, day by day, one act of courage at a time. The doorbell rang. Bridget stood on the porch holding champagne and wearing the expression of someone with a very good secret. Before you say a single word, yes, I know you have work tomorrow. Yes, I know Ruth is sleeping. But this absolutely cannot wait. What cannot wait? Bridget thrust her phone at Vivi, a news article. Breaking story. Sterling Corp assets to fund victims' compensation program. The headline was followed by details. A federal court had approved the distribution of seized Sterling holdings. Over $200 million would go to the families of Preston's victims. Another $100 million to establish a permanent fund for domestic violence survivors. This is your father's doing, Bridget said it like a declaration. The man is a legend. He did not just put them away. He made certain their money went to the people they harmed. Vivi read the article again. The numbers were staggering. The impact would reach across generations. I did not know about this. He wanted to surprise you. Made me promise to say nothing until it was official. Bridget opened the champagne. So we are celebrating. Even if it is just one glass. Even if you have to be sensible tomorrow. Tonight we acknowledge that the good people won. They sat on the porch watching the stars appear, drinking champagne that probably cost more than Vivi wanted to consider. How do you feel? Bridget asked. Vivi thought about it, genuinely thought about it. Like it is truly over, like I can finally stop waiting for something else to go wrong. That is called peace. I have heard it is worth finding. It is, Vivi smiled. It really is. The speaking engagement was the largest of her career. A national conference on survivor advocacy, 3,000 people in the audience, another 100,000 watching the live stream. She had prepared her remarks, rehearsed them carefully, made sure every word landed exactly where she intended. But when she stepped to the podium and looked out at all those faces, she set her notes aside. I had a speech prepared, she said. Statistics about domestic violence, policy recommendations, all very important, all very necessary. She paused. But you did not come here for statistics. You came here for the same reason I did, because you know that behind every number is a person, a story, a life that was permanently changed by violence. The room held its breath. 3 years ago, I was pushed down an elevator shaft by my husband. I was 7 months pregnant. He expected me to die, expected to erase me the way he had erased 5 women before me. She let that land. I survived, not through any special strength. I survived because I struck a maintenance platform instead of the bottom, because a worker found me 6 hours later, because doctors spent the night saving my life and my daughter's life. A woman in the front row was weeping. The man beside her had his arm around her shoulders. People asked me how I moved on, how I found peace, how I rebuilt a life after everything was broken. Vivi took a slow breath. I tell them I did not move on. I moved through. There is no shortcut around the pain, no path that bypasses the damage. You have to walk the entire road, feel every terrible step, let the grief move over you until there is nothing left except you. She looked at the faces before her. Survivors, advocates, people who had given their lives to helping others through the dark. But here is what I know now. The road has an end. And on the other side of it, you meet yourself. The version of yourself who survived everything designed to destroy her. Everything intended to erase her. She smiled. And she is absolutely worth meeting. 3,000 people rose to their feet. The sound moved over Vivi like a wave. Not triumph, not vindication. Something simpler. Hope. The final chapter of Vivi's story was not dramatic. It was not profound. It was simply a morning like any other. Ruth woke early and demanded pancakes. Managed to get syrup on her face and in her hair, and somehow on the ceiling. Bridget stopped by with coffee and news about the preschool parent group. Raymond called to check in, to discuss Ruth's upcoming birthday, to remind Vivi how much he loved her. Teddy sent a photo from some technology conference, looking successful, looking content, looking nothing like the worried young man who had paced a hospital waiting room while his niece was being born. The foundation sent updates. New volunteers trained, new families helped, new lives redirected towards something better. Margaret Morrison sent flowers, a standing arrangement every week since their meeting, a reminder that grief and gratitude are not opposites. And Ruth. Ruth played in her garden, chased butterflies she would never catch, laughed at things only she understood, grew taller every week, more confident, more entirely herself. Vivi watched her from the kitchen window, coffee in hand, morning light streaming through clean glass. This was her life, not the sterling penthouse, not the charity events, not the crystal and marble and careful performances. Just this, a messy kitchen, a sticky toddler, a family forged in fire and made stronger for it. Ruth looked up, caught her mother watching, waved with both hands. "Mommy, come see." Vivi put down her coffee, walked out to the garden, let her daughter show her the latest butterfly, the newest bloom, the small wonders that fill a child's world. "It is beautiful," she said. "I know." Ruth's certainty was complete, the confidence of someone who had never once been told she was not enough. Vivi knelt beside her, brushed a curl back from her forehead, felt the fierce love that still caught her off guard every single day. "Do you know what the best part is?" she asked. "What?" "That you are here to see it, that we are here together." Ruth thought this over with the full gravity of a 2-year-old philosopher. "That is good," she agreed. "Yes," Vivi said, "it really is." Later that evening, after Ruth was asleep and the house had grown quiet around her, Vivi returned to the back porch. The stars were out, millions of them. More than you could ever see from the top of Sterling Tower. She thought about all of it. The 3 years since the fall, the darkness and the light, the grief and the hope, the woman she had been and the woman she had become. He pushed me into that shaft, expecting me to vanish. Like the others, like all his secrets, like everything inconvenient standing between him and what he wanted. But I did not fall into darkness. I fell into the rest of my life, and it is a life he will never reach. Somewhere in a federal prison, Preston Sterling sat in a cell. His fortune gone, his name destroyed, his legacy turned to nothing. He would spend every remaining day staring at concrete walls, knowing that the woman he tried to kill was living and thriving and raising their daughter to chase butterflies in a garden he would never see. That was justice, not the clean resolution of movies and simple stories, not the tidy ending of easy narratives. Real justice. Imperfect, complicated, stubbornly, undeniably real. Vivi raised her face toward the stars. "Thank you," she whispered, "to the universe, to whatever force had placed that maintenance platform in her path, had kept her heart beating through 6 hours of darkness, had given her father the strength to take apart an empire, had brought Ruth safely into the world. Thank you for the second chance. I will not waste it." The stars did not answer. They never do. But that was all right. Some things do not require a response. They only require acknowledgement. Vivi stood, stretched, took one last look at the garden where her daughter had played today. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new chances, new moments to be fully present for. But tonight, there was peace. And that was more than enough. Genevieve fell 40 feet into darkness. She rose 40,000 feet into the light. Some stories end with revenge. This one ended with something far better. A daughter who will grow up never knowing her father's cruelty. A grandfather who proved that justice still exists in this world. A woman who took her own pain and turned it into something that now protects thousands of others. If this story reached you somewhere real, do me one small thing. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss another story like this one. Leave a comment and tell me which moment stayed with you. I read every single one. And if you know someone who needs to hear that survival is truly possible, share this with them. Because sometimes the right story at the right moment can change absolutely everything. Until next time, stay strong, stay hopeful, and never stop fighting.